What do you do when everything's on the line and hesitation isn't an option?
Mm.
Today's guest, he's jumped out of planes over 650 times, and he leads in environments where one bad decision can cost you everything. If you've ever felt pressure, uncertainty, or fear, this conversation will change how you lead forever. Welcome to the 30-minute hour.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous. You say he done jumped out the plane 600 times. You just like, oh, we're gonna just speed past that. He done jumped out of a plane 650 sometimes. Man,
Now we're gonna talk a whole lot more about that. People are now on the edge of their seat, Ted. Like, man, I gotta lean in and see
yeah.
what's going on with this. Yeah. So this is the 30-minute hour podcast. It's the personal development podcast for entrepreneurs and executive leaders who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. And joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. 650 times he's jumped out of a plane.
No. 650 plus. I should have said that. 650 plus times.
I rounded down just a tad.
Yeah, it's plus.
Okay. So I've never done it. I've never done it. But all is well. Glad to be here.
After I was sharing with him, backstage that he's only done this 650 more times than me. So
Oh yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
My goal today is maybe to convince one of the two of you to jump out of a plane soon enough.
Yeah, I think Ted is your guy.
That guy
Ted is
over
your
there.
guy.
He's your guy. Now I will be there to support him.
Hey, look, I will cheer you and Ted on. I'm gonna be like, man, y'all are something else. I am truly inspired. But now seriously though, in all seriousness, so today we're talking about leading under pressure and the lessons from 650 plus skydives.
Hmm.
That's our theme for today because there's a lot of parallels. Again, Joe and I were talking backstage, and sometimes you look at somebody doing something like speaking in front of thousands of people, or maybe they ran a marathon, and you're like, oh, I could never do that. That's your or jumping out of a plane, right?
Oh, I can never do that.
But it's all about mindset. And so we'll talk about what does that mindset look like? How does it apply to business? You're leading people. You own a business. How do these principles apply to you? We'll get right into that. So Ted, let's go ahead and jump right in.
Jump right into it, man. Let's go.
You saw what I did there? Jump right.
Yeah, we can jump into this. I ain't jumping on no plane. But we can jump right into this.
No, seriously, Ted, I think that'd be a good look for you. But all right. So our guest today, he's a leadership coach, a tech executive, licensed skydiver, like I said, with 650 plus jumps. He helps leaders think clearly and act decisively under pressure. And he currently serves as a vice president supporting mission critical government programs. Please join me in welcoming to the show, Joe Wyrwas.
There we go. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Ted. Love to be here.
Yeah, this is excellent. Welcome to the show. Our viewers and listeners are in for a treat because I always know when it's going to be good when the backstage part qualifies. Like I should have just hit record like when we were backstage beforehand. Some of the things we were talking about. So I know this is really going to bring a lot of value to people. But let's kind of give people some perspective. Take us back. Like, what were you doing before all of this? Like, what was the path? Like, what path were you originally on that led up to this?
Man, well, I'm going to start kind of in the middle of the journey, which is realizing that I didn't want to continue to be limited by fear and had seen so many small moments that I was able to overcome. And now, particularly with the business, it was another step in the direction of who I wanted to be and the impact that I could have with other people. And so I've been metaphorically and literally jumping into new challenges throughout my entire life. And it's all been about how do we overcome pressure, external pressure, and the pressure from within.
Hmm. So that's, I mean, was there like this one defining moment where everything shifted for you, where you said, okay, this thing needs to change?
There wasn't one defining moment, but it was definitely a lot of small moments that started adding up.
Hmm.
We were talking backstage where the first time I remember public speaking was in second grade, and I was petrified. Had to say
Mhm.
literally like one sentence announcement, and my hands were shaking, and you could barely hear whatever the heck I even had to say. And I've had so many of those moments across my life. And I realized that I didn't want that. I wanted to do so much more. And so for me, one of the actual defining life changing experiences was a 10-day leadership seminar that I attended the summer after my sophomore year of high school. And it was the first time I saw myself as more than that quiet, shy kid that was smart and could do things, but only by himself. And so if I had to pick a moment, that would be it. It was 10 days worth of moments that really propelled me into this experience called leadership developments, realizing that there's frameworks and ideas and beliefs that I could learn that could help me overcome those fears. And then that really set me on the journey of where I am now. So that one experience, if I had to pick one.
It's interesting. So like there's a quote, his name is escaping me right now, but he says that every master was once a disaster,
Mhm.
right?
Mm,
And so it means that, when you initially start, you know, you're terrified, you don't really know what
sure.
you're doing, but you work through that. And I think the difference between the people who are performing at an elite level and the ones who aren't, they're willing to go through that phase where they're awkward, where they're a disaster, it's not good, they're terrified, they don't know what they're doing. Can you talk to that from your perspective?
Sure. And that's where I really love working with others when they're in that disaster phase where they're so ready to get out of it and they're so ready to find the structure, the coaching, the things they need to take that next step. And it's really taking a step back and looking around and recognizing, well, it might be a disaster right now. We might be feeling a lot of pressure, a lot of frustration, but we've already had experiences to get us where we are. And so, really, one, taking an inventory of our strengths, an inventory of the gifts we've been given, and what we've already been able to accomplish. And so, I always start with the why when I work with someone. Why are you wanting to do the thing you want? What's your purpose? What's your dream? But why? And then
Mhm.
when you start then connecting it with a mindset of gratitude, okay, I might be a disaster still, but here's the things that are going on. And then focusing on, okay, I'm terrible at public speaking. I don't know how to run a business. I can't run more than a mile, but I have these goals. I want to run my own business. I want to be a great keynote speaker. Maybe I want to even run a marathon. And so then it's identifying where you want to go and creating that plan of action, tying it to your why, and then step by step, sometimes side steps, sometimes steps in the wrong direction, but moving forward consistently is what really I teach and how I work and love to coach others towards.
Yeah, and you and I were talking backstage. I remember when I was first starting out, I was a brand new corporate trainer for a company, and they sent us to this train the trainer session, and everything was going fine. And at the end, we had to give like a 10-minute presentation in front of everybody about teaching them something they didn't already know. And I was terrified. I mean, literally, like I didn't sleep the night before. I was like, oh my goodness. I stumbled my way through it. And now I think about now, like I could probably get up and talk for 10 minutes with no preparation. But it's because of just that's why you just can't look at something and think, oh, I can never do that.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
we also get stuck on the finished product. We see these people on YouTube or on podcasts or have a book that have done so many reps beforehand that we don't see, that we forget about. And it's those reps, those failures, those disaster moments that lead to someone getting to that pinnacle of success, the millions of views, the best-selling book. And sure, maybe there's a couple naturals out in the world that have figured it out, but almost everyone else has to do the work, has to learn and work and step by step make it through. I shared my first public speaking disaster, and there's so many other disasters that I could think of and share in those presentations in school, the first time I gave a keynote, the first time I had to run a meeting. And because I struggled through those, because so many other people have struggled through those, it's how do you then learn from that experience? What small change can you make next time? A quick tactical tip that I learned early on was, hey, people like PowerPoints and you need to advance the slide. Well, if you don't have a clicker, okay, how do you make sure you're getting to the next slide? And so I literally figured out what made it comfortable for me to like get the person controlling the PowerPoint to advance the next slide without fumbling over it. And I would practice those small little pieces of the presentation, those small little techniques that it doesn't solve everything. I'm still going to mess up words. I'm still going to forget a slide here and there. But when you start removing those challenging pieces, giving yourself a successful pattern to follow, then you make it easier and those habits build and it gets a little bit cleaner, a little bit more streamlined. And then next thing you know, zero prep, 10-minute speech, and you're knocking it out of the ballpark.
yep, for sure. That is very true. So we're here. We're talking about leading under pressure lessons from 650 plus skydives. So let's talk about this skydiving thing. We should, because Ted is preparing himself to jump with you, so we need to start talking about it right now.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. We can talk about it, but I'm not preparing to do it.
So first off, so Joe, two-part question here, right?
Sure.
First off, like, how did skydiving into your life? And then secondly, like, what kept you coming back after the first jump?
Sure. So I did a road trip up to Chicago with a friend back in 2018. And she was like, yo, we got to go skydiving while we're up there, make it part of the venture. It was always on my bucket list. So I said, why not? Did it. I was actually only nervous for 4 seconds while my feet were hanging outside the plane. But then you're out of the plane and you're like, well, I can't be nervous anymore. Fast forward, we do it again, second time in Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm like, what am I doing? You survived the first time. This is stupid. I can't believe she convinced me to do a second one. That entire time, all 4 seconds, I wasn't nervous. So she goes again. I skip it. And then she goes again one more time in 2021. And she's like, one more time, 3 times a charm. So I go down to a skydiving drop zone, middle of Virginia. The town's called Orange. The drop zone's called Orange. And while we're there, the person that checks you in is talking about, hey, well, you'll still do a tandem, but your friend sounds like she kind of maybe wants to learn how to get her license. And so they're like, we'll give you an altimeter. You can tell how high you are. We'll teach you how to pull your own parachute. We'll teach you how to fly it. My friend's like, yeah. I'm like, no, I'm here to do one more, never again. What happens? They give me my own altimeter. They teach me how to pull the parachute. They teach me how to fly it. And what I realize in that moment is skydiving is actually more than just falling straight down, going wee for 60 seconds. There's actually a whole sport, a whole series of sports around skydiving. You can learn how to do formations. You can fly your body in all these crazy directions. You can fly parachutes in all kinds of ways. And I like a challenge. I'm kind of a competitive guy. And so I realized that the sky can literally not only be a playground, but it can be a whole new competition field up in the air. And so as soon as I get down, she's like, well, I'm going to get my license. What about you, Joe? Next thing I know, I sign up. We do the first jump course. Fast forward 4 years later, I've now done over 650 skydives just because of that one conversation on a road trip to Chicago.
So she was like, Joe, we got to do it. And you were like, yeah, we
Yep.
got to, I'm all in.
Oh, yeah.
She wouldn't want to be my friend. She's like, Ted, we got to do it. I'm like, no, we don't. No, we don't. You got to do it. I'll be there.
We don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
There's a concept that I love called goal contagion, where you literally hear someone else's goals or ideas or dreams, and it sometimes rubs off on you. And for me, it rubbed off a big time. So I'm hoping my goal contagion with both of you might rub off just a little bit.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, Joe. I'm not jumping out. No plane if I can help it.
So it's interesting. There is a famous study where they put, you're probably aware of this, where they put a heart rate monitor on these people jumping out of the plane just to kind of see at what point their heart rate spiked. So the study concluded that their heart rate was at its highest point, like right before they were about to jump.
Yep.
And then it actually went down when they were in the air.
Yep.
So they were more anxious about thinking about the jump than the actual jump itself. And I think that has a lot of applications to things other than skydiving. Talk to us about, you experienced it firsthand. So talk to us about your thoughts on that.
Sure. So many times we have ideas in our head that turn into emotions in our body about something that doesn't even exist yet, that hasn't even happened. Think about all those negative what ifs that bounce around when you're having a bad day. And so many times it's all about what's going on internally, but isn't even aligned with exactly what's going on in real life. And so just with skydiving, before you take that leap, particularly for someone that's never done it before, you're starting to build up those thoughts in your head that then start leading to emotions in your body, but it has nothing to do with your actual experience. You're just sitting in a plane right there. You're hyping yourself up, sometimes in a fun, engaged way, other times in a I'm freaking the heck out way. And then once you get into that moment, then you're so focused on the moment that you forget about all those hypotheticals. And so with everything I do with coaching, it's exactly that as well, where we're so afraid of these hypotheticals. What happens if I'm on stage and something goes wrong? What happens if my business goes sideways and I lose a client? What happens if, and again. And so it's take a step back. Okay, is it real? Could we actually think of some positive what if scenarios? And then let's actually take a step forward into something, take some effort, do some momentum, because then once we get on stage, once we're running the business, once we're taking that next step, we're so focused on action that we're no longer in those negative what if scenarios that prevent us from taking action, prevent us from getting to the life that we want to get to.
So I could see how after doing the skydiving, though, you probably felt like there was nothing you couldn't do after that. Like that was probably like, all right, I now you didn't sound like you wanted to do it another time, but you got kind of,
coerced into it a little bit.
Back into it, but I could see how if you after you finish cursing and all that as you're flying down and thinking, like, what was I thinking? And you made it. You're like, thank God I made it. You probably felt like, okay, now I can apply that to so many other facets of my life. So
yeah, exactly, Ted.
So you mentioned kind of like the what if questions, right? So it sounds like you help people to answer those questions. So if you're working with a business owner and they're saying, okay, what if the business fails? What if I lose this client? What if I lose this employee? What if I forget my speech? So you help them to answer that question, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, that's one of the things I do, which is helping people overcome their limiting beliefs and
Mhm.
create mental patterns where they can actually start turning positive mental patterns into positive momentum, into positive action to get to the thing they're trying to achieve.
So all right, Joe. So I've got a question. This is, you know, I ask these questions for a friend, right? Because
Right.
they watch, they want to know. They say, Joe, you like a fearless guy, and congrats on all these jumps. But there had to be a point in your journey where you felt like you started to question your path, or you were thinking about quitting. Tell us about one of those times.
Sure. So, do you want it in business, in skydiving, in life in general? I got many of those stories.
Let's go with business.
Sure. So I think for business, especially creating your own thing, there can be so much self doubt because unless you're getting that immediate feedback of, okay, I did that marketing campaign, or I put out a proposal to a customer, or I gave that speech, well, so much of that is not immediate feedback. And so you're just left in this gray area of, did I do the right thing? Am I on the right path? Am I ever going to get paid for one of those clients I really want to work with? And so, even to this day, there is always a little bit of that self doubt because even I've had the reps, I've had the success, but the brain wants to go back to that what if negative loop. And so I start with business to your question, but I tie it into so many other things as well. Where even with skydiving, I've had times where I'm like, do I want to do this anymore? Am I enjoying it? Is this worth the drive down to Virginia to hop out of planes? The question then I ask myself is, well, why am I feeling and thinking this right now? And what is the actual underlying thing that's driving it? And for me, one of the big mindsets that I have that I focus on is a growth mindset versus an accomplishment mindset.
Mhm.
Mm.
For skydiving, well, accomplishment, you don't want to die. That's the number one accomplishment. But number two, particularly when you get your license, is, well, I want to get the license. And then after that, you actually realize that people in the sport are really good and you're really not good, even with 650 jumps. And so
Mm.
it's this mindset shift of, am I focused on getting better? One jump, one speech, 1 mile, one LinkedIn post at a time? Or am I only focused on the outcome? Do I get the paid client? Did I have a successful 100% feedback rating, et cetera, et cetera? And the times where I've thought about quitting, particularly again with business and skydiving, is when I'm so focused on that accomplishment and an
Mhm.
achievement mindset instead of the growth mindset.
Mm.
Because we're never going to be 100% successful. What's like the Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss all the shots you don't take. But at the same time, as humans, we get stuck on thinking about all the shots that we're missing. And so for me, again, to your question, it's when I recognize I'm so much too focused in that accomplishment mindset and I'm starting to feel doubt and fear, I take that step back and say, how much have I grown? Where am I trying to grow to? And if I continue to grow, will I get to the goals and the achievements I want? And when I do that, then I'm like, cool, let's keep jumping out of planes. Let's keep running this business. Let's keep hopping up on stages to share the messaging that I know in my heart will have an impact for other people.
It's interesting when you talk about, business. I think we tend to be our hardest critic,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because there's always someone that wishes they had gotten as far as you have got. They've thought about starting a business where you started a business, right? You've been
Yep.
in business for 6 months, 6 years, whatever, and someone else has not even gotten out the gate,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you think about each of these accomplishments. I just think about it just from my own standpoint of when the name was created. It's like, okay, that's the name, right? When you got your first website, you just kept going back to the site and just looking at your website, your business card. You just continue giving people cards. Like, look, man, don't give me no more of those cards. I got about 12 of your cards. Right?
Yep.
I know how to get in touch with you, man. You're my neighbor. You're my neighbor, Eric. I know how to get in touch. You know what I'm saying? But you continue to look at stop. I think kind of like you were saying before, having the gratitude, just looking at, okay, look, this is how far I've come. This is what I've accomplished, and versus comparing yourself to others.
Yep.
Right, because you can look at some others and be like, oh man, they just won this $500 million contract, or they must be better than me. They must.
And they just started 3 months ago. They got a $500 million contract.
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, they must be working harder than me and all that. And really, that's not the case, because I think everyone's journey is their journey, right? So you don't know what someone else may have done, what type of connections they may have, that opportunity was just kind of set up for them specifically. But just looking at your own journey, and like you said, your own growth, as you mentioned, I think is so critical.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm still not jumping out of the plane. I just want you to know.
I thought we had you converted. I really.
It sounded like you were on the right track.
And I think social media complicates things.
Mm.
You look at other people, and they're always, every post, the child's got straight A's. They just got a Ferrari. They just like, right, man, what am I doing?
They never post when the kid failed.
Right.
They never posted the contract that they lost.
No.
Right. No. It's always the wins.
Exactly.
Because so really, the takeaway from this part of the segment is that you're really only competing with yesterday's version of yourself.
Boom.
That's a twiggable quote.
There you go. That's a
twiggable quote. That's really the key. It kind of goes back to what you said, Joe, about just having this growth mindset. Are you getting just a little bit better every day? And so let's kind of shift gears a little bit. I'm going to talk about like how do you train yourself and your teams to stay calm when the average person would be panicking?
Yeah. The number one thing, I say this in so many settings, is number one, let's just take a step back. Take a step back, take a beat, take a breath, because especially when like the world's on fire, we just want to like run forward and do something. And so we've had so many times, like going to my tech consulting part of my life, where we'll get an email from like a client or the customer who says, go change all your priorities, do this thing, like you got to go do it now. And the immediate instinct is to set the hair on fire, jump in and do the thing. And in those moments, particularly with the teams I'm working with, it's let's take a beat. If we have time, if it's the right situation, let's actually reach out and understand a little bit more before we make a direction. Now, if the server is like literally on fire, we might want to go put it out first type thing. But it's that pause for me is the most critical thing, because it then gives us a little bit more of a calm perspective to then start asking the right questions, to make sure we have all the information to then move forward. And a lot of times we get these high pressure situations that we interpret as high pressure, as immediate, but then we don't actually see that there's a deadline or a date or a time in that request. And then you ask the person, hey, from your email, from your phone call, it seems like this is like your number one priority. And the number of times one of my customers would say, oh, sorry, I didn't intend for it to be the number one priority. I see how you interpreted my request. It's actually can wait till the end of the week, or can even wait till next week. And so because we didn't freak out, we didn't dive straight in, we took that beat and then asked those important clarifying questions. That's how I set the tone in every situation that I'm leading in. And it's those small little steps that make such an impact, where people can feel my calm and then we can move forward. As a quick anecdote, I was running a college age volunteer team for a leadership development program a couple years ago. And we're up in Chicago, and there's massive thunderstorms rolling in, and we're supposed to go out into the city that day. So everyone's freaking out about what the plan is, what are we going to do? And I could sense my team was also starting to kind of get unnerved. And I pulled them together and I said, hey, friends, let's take a beat. You all really set the tone as our young volunteers for how other people are now going to feel. Yes, I get the other adults in the room are running around with their heads cut off, but I know that you all have the level of maturity. I don't care if you're 18, 20, or 200, you can set the tone for other people. And they did. And it was amazing because we all, the 15 of us, walked out of that room, did the small things we had to do, and people could feel that we weren't nervous. We knew we were going to figure out a plan. Sure, the plan was still in flux, but because we set that tone, everyone else started to also calm down, get in alignment, and then move forward with what we needed to do just because of that one step back, take a beat, and then let's ask the right questions.
So, that's always a key, I think, leadership quality, right? I always tell people you want to be the thermostat versus the thermometer. And you have to be the one to come in and set the tone, because if you're freaking out, everybody just kind of freaks out with you. So people are like, Ted, you're always so calm. No, that's what I show you. That's what I show you. If I freak out, then we're all freaking out, and then we're not going to get anywhere. Yeah.
So true. And I think the other thing to add is it's also okay to share how we're feeling, where I've been like, hey, look, I'm staying calm, but I am nervous right now. We got to go put on this event, and our caterer just dropped. And so like sharing that balance as well, I think builds trust, where people can see you're calm, but they know that you're internalizing and processing and able to have that emotional regulation, where so many people, even in leadership roles, aren't able to regulate properly, haven't got to that emotional intelligence level. And I think that key point really also goes a very long way for creating other people to then build off of that too.
Yeah, man, I think Ted brings up an interesting point. Yeah, you definitely are the thermostat, right? Because if you lose it, everybody's in trouble.
That's it.
Everybody's panicking. So I am curious though, like what's at least one fear that still shows up for you when it comes to business that would surprise a lot of people?
I think for me right now, am I heading down kind of that larger visionary path that I'm meant to be on? And I have multiple business coaches myself right now in a couple of different regards. And it's a lot of that like repetition of, okay, what's your niche? What's your service offering that's differentiating? Are you XYZing? All these different things. And for me, it's okay, we've gone through those different exercises. I'm seeing success, but am I really heading down the path that I think God intended for me to be on? And so it's some of that internal struggle that I still have to this day, not only even with my business, but in life, because there's millions of possibilities, so many different choices we make each day. And so it's that internal struggle of, am I making the right, one, business choices, but two, the choices that are truly aligned with who I should be and the impact that I can have. And so I really try to focus a little bit both on that day-to-day success and gratitude, as well as, sure, I don't want to have no plan for the future, but is it the plan that I'm supposed to be on? So there's that internal struggle that is definitely still there.
Thank you for being transparent with that, because a lot of people watch and listen to someone like you who obviously had a lot of success and think, oh yeah, well, easy for Joe to say, yeah. But,
he's jumped out of a plane 650
times. Right. But you still have your fears and challenges just like everybody else. The difference between you and a lot of other people though is you work through it and you've got processes to help you to work through it.
Exactly. And that's again where comes back to coaching, where I just mentioned I have coaches myself. Find a friend, find a coach, find a therapist, a priest, someone that can help you on the journey. Because sure, we can watch YouTube videos, we can read books, we can listen to podcasts, but when you have someone in your life that has a little bit of that accountability piece, that has that critical thinking, has that outside perspective, that's when you can really start seeing some sustainable change. So that's my number one recommendation for everyone. Doesn't have to be a coach, it can be anyone, but get someone that can really help push you in the right direction.
For sure, for sure. So let's help our business owners and business leaders. So, like when you're in like an uncertain, high stakes situation with a lot on the line, what's in a mental process or framework that you use that other people can use when they're making decisions?
Sure. So number one, priorities. What are your priorities and how does this align? As business owners, we have so much to do every single day of the week, and we get lost in the noise a lot of times. The to-do list is not your priority list. Your priority list is the thing that drives your decision making and the time and energy you should put in. And so when you're in this very critical, high stress scenario, the first thing is starting with how does it align with your priorities and how does it align with where you're trying to go? So many times people will be, particularly in business owners, oh, do I go take this contract? Do I pay for this marketing plan? Do I join this business association? And it's, okay, does it align with one of your top 3 priorities? I suggest 3 is typically the good number to start with. Because if it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's no longer a priority. That's a to-do list. And then the second one is your why. I always go back to that. And why is that a priority? Why is that thing important?
I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm sorry. You said something I don't want to stumble over. I totally agree with you. You said if there's more than 3 priorities, it becomes a to-do list.
Exactly.
Oh man.
That is my number one tip, where I will coach people and we'll be talking about their business, their life, whatever they're trying to accomplish. And we'll be working down their priority list. And then it just starts growing and growing. And I'll challenge them. I'm like, if that's your week-long priority list, we're going to meet next week. Tell me how many you make it through. Typically 2, 3, maybe 4 tops. And it's that concept right there that, yeah, Eric, you pointed it out spot on, that when we build too much, it's not a priority anymore. It's just a thing we have to do. And then we don't do it half the time.
Yeah. And when you got 6 things you're working on, right, you only get 1 or 2 things done, or maybe none of the 6 things.
Yeah.
So that's powerful. I hope somebody got that, because that if you really just focus on maximum of 3, I think for a lot of people, maybe 1 thing,
yeah,
or 2 things to work on, right?
Spot on.
Interestingly enough, because I'll have these long lists of things to do, but you'll notice that when something is hot, you get it done then.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, okay, I got to have this done by tomorrow. That thing jumps to the top and you just do it. Right? But if you can give your own deadline to it, you'll just keep stretching it out and stretching it out and stretching it out. And yeah.
And then it's not a priority. And then you realize, why is it keeping mental bandwidth up here? Why is it still on my to-do list? Maybe it is a to-do. Maybe there is value added, but compared to the hundreds of other things you could be working on, just put it down, get rid of it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back on track. You talked about priorities. You were starting to talk about why. Let's continue down the road. You're talking about why. We're talking about this mental framework for people to make decisions.
Why is it a priority? Why does it align with your life? Why does it align with your goals? Why is it even something you want to do or make that choice? Or why you're even in this high stress situation in the first place. So many times we end up in a situation and we think we have to deal with it. We think we have to move forward or get stuck. As a quick anecdote, for some of the volunteer work I've done for many, many years, I actually took a step back from a volunteer role 2 weeks ago. And it was one of the toughest choices I've made in a long time. But I asked myself, why? Why do I want to do this? And why do I want to struggle through what was going on? And I realized that the choice was I could actually remove myself. And I recognized this year that that was the thing I needed for my mental health, for my time and energy, for my family, for the business. And so many times we don't look broader. We get stuck in this like one or two choice scenario. And we forget that sometimes stepping away is an option. And so the why kind of helps illuminate that. Why was I still wanting to volunteer? Why was I willing to put my effort in? But also, why would I potentially want to step away? Why do I need to step away? And so priorities to your why, and then particularly for challenging high stress situations, what is the one thing that we need to know? And what is the one thing that we need to do in the next X time frame, typically the next hour or day? And those two things then create momentum. So what do we really need to know to get out of this situation, to move forward, to make a better choice? And then what is one action step? And that maybe that's literally just asking that question, but what's one action step we can move forward a little bit? So many times I see leaders get stuck in analysis paralysis. How many times have you all been in a meeting where you're like, didn't we do this exact same meeting last week and the week before and the week before and the week before? And when you ask one question and you take one step forward, you start getting out of that. And again, as business owners, you don't have time for that. You don't have time to repeat the same conversation. You have to move forward. And so that simple framework for me, top 3 priorities, tie it back to your why. And then again, particularly in a stressful situation, what's the one question and what's the one action we can take to start moving forward?
That's great. I mean, that's exactly what helps people, right? It's one thing to say, oh, you just need to change your mindset, but it's another thing to have a specific framework and really start with the priorities and the why. So thank you. Thank you. I mean, that's exactly what our followers are looking for. Meat to really help them to lead under pressure. So no, that's great. So all right. So what's one thing, the business leader that's watching us or listening to us right now, like what's one shift that they can make as soon as they log off so they can start to become more decisive?
That's a good question. Well, the first would be what I just said, the priorities, but I think it's more of that mindset. And for me, it's what we were talking about earlier, which is, do you what if into a positive up direction, or do you what if down? And we get stuck in those negative scenarios, and it gets us in that paralysis again, where we don't want to make a choice because we're afraid if we make a choice. And so what I have been doing, particularly the past couple months, anytime I'm in a moment of, I need to make a decision, I need to take action, I try to come up with 2 or 3 positive potential things that'll come out of that decision. And if it's like an A or B choice, I do it on both ends. So many times we do the like what if negatives. Instead, I do the cool. If I no longer volunteer, here are the 2 or 3 scenarios that are positive that will happen in my life that will help me align with that choice. And if I continue to volunteer, as an example, what are the 2 to 3 scenarios that are positive that will make me feel good about continuing to volunteer? And so when you flip from that negative mindset to that positive what if, for me, that then helps me be more decisive because I can align on positive energy, positive momentum, and positive thoughts moving forward. And then I drive towards those potential outcomes. We want to run away from fear and we want to run away from danger. But typically, we want to run towards goodness and fun and positive scenarios. And so, if you have those in your mind, make that decision and then run towards them.
Oh, I think that's something that somebody watching this or listening needs to take note of. The positive what if, right? Now, it's funny you say because I've done that with people. Like, oh, well, what if this person doesn't work out? Well, what if they do?
What if they're awesome? What if they're amazing?
Right? Mm-hmm. What if they change your business? Then what?
Yep.
Yeah. Good. No, that I think you definitely helped some people today. What's the best method for people to connect with you?
Sure. Three spots since we talked about skydiving. So follow me on Instagram, Wiser with Joe, and that's Wiser with a Y. If you want to check out some fun skydiving videos, maybe Ted will check a couple of those out and be like, ooh, maybe I should do this. 2, my website, wiserwithjoe.com. You can see the services, the keynotes, and the workshops that I love to do. And then 3, on LinkedIn, love to connect there. I really try to share philosophies and stories and leadership lessons that I've developed over time. So if something resonated in our conversation today, you're probably going to see some great posts from me on LinkedIn about some of the same topics as well.
Thank you, Joe. Joe Wyrwas, thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. For those of you watching and listening to us right now, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show.
That's right. Don't keep this great information to yourself. And then don't forget, you can actually go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those podcasting platforms, look for the 30-minute hour podcast, and you can subscribe. And that way you'll get notifications and you'll never miss a future episode. That's our time for this week on the show. That's right. Joe knocked it out of the park. Ted's ready to jump out of his plane. We're just ready to go. It's going to be
ready.
That's right.
Not.
I'm working on it. Oh, it was great chatting with both of you guys. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was great. So as you think about leading under pressure and the lessons from the 650 skydives, please remember this. Don't allow perfect to become the enemy of progress, because your next level starts with your next step. Take care and have a great one.